Thursday, January 20th, 2022. I'm discussing the InterBorough Express between Queens and Brooklyn, as well as the Cross Harbor Rail Tunnel between Brooklyn and New Jersey. So, these are projects that you probably heard of in the past. A lot of local organizations and advocacy groups fought for these projects, including RPA, Regional Planning Association, and several other groups. So, as well as local politicians, including Congressman Gerald Nadler, who represents Manhattan. This is a key part of the infrastructure that has been long time missing in the New York region. If you look at other cities around the world, even in the United States, you can see freight lines crisscrossing them, especially if you think freight lines. Cities. Los Angeles is one of them. Chicago is another one of them. Even Washington, D.C. is another one of them. But there is a city that has long had a missing freight line. And if you ever known the freight line situation in the New York City region, a lot of freight trains have to go all the way up to Albany and come back down towards New York City via the Hudson Line or the Amtrak Empire Corridor. So, that's a long detour. Alternatively, if they don't want to make that trek, they have to offload in New Jersey in various distribution hubs and get those packages loaded onto trucks and ship it into Long Island, including Queens and Brooklyn, even including Manhattan. By building this Cross Harbor Rail Tunnel, a lot of Norfolk Southern and CSX freight trains can cross into Brooklyn and Queens, offload around here, or even if they made a junction of some sort, they can ship some more goods into Long Island, perhaps distribution center in Central Nassau, or somewhere in Suffolk County, where they can do a hub and spike, that's what I call them, distribution, where trains go to hub, offload, the spike means local trucking brings them to grocery stores and or their own distribution center to be distributed further. So that's a great way to do it. So this definitely cuts down a lot of truck traffic in Manhattan. If you really want to solve the issue, central business district tolling, congestion pricing is not the way to do it. You need to provide alternatives. The risk for congestion pricing in Manhattan, south of 59th Street, that area, is more traffic will be diverted onto Staten Island, Verrazano Narrows. Well, Tappan another routing that could face impacts. George Washington Bridge as well, and the Cross Bronx. So you congest Bronx streets, congest Westchester streets, you congest Staten Island streets and Brooklyn streets. Well, loosening up Manhattan, but that just doesn't solve the issue at hand, because you got a very populated Long Island. All right, this is just part of Queens and part of Brooklyn. More population here, more population all over. And if you want to look at a map, this is Long Island. It's going to be loading a bit. This is Long Island. Brooklyn, Queens, Nassau, Suffolk. This is a very populated area and very dense from 110 west towards Brooklyn. So a lot of people live here, and you can't really solve the issue by congestion tolling. So the solution is the cross harbor tunnel. They will have some kind of dig starting here, around here. There's a lot of freight lines around here. A couple go up there to more distribution center in the Meadowlands, and here is a couple of distribution center as well, including Port of New York, which is important port, major port in the East Coast and in the United States. So a freight line can go like this and connect here, so they can distribute stuff. So that's very important for the region. You get probably better traffic overall, and less noise overall. At least for Manhattan and Brooklyn and Queens, it increases jobs, and anyways, this doesn't change truck traffic much. Now, if you look at this, you might wonder, that looks like a rail line. Well, yes, it is. That's the satellite image from the satellites above us. So, this is the rail line that we're all talking about now. So, this project kind of like goes hand in hand, if you will. So, this is basically InterBorough Express. I'm just going to overview this now, and this is how it runs, and I just want to make it a little easier to make sense. You run up towards Jackson Heights, west side, from Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. So this kind of where it ends at this point. So let's bring back to Brooklyn, and we'll just make our way up like we did earlier. So, why is this important? Why is this InterBorough Express important? Well, if you look at maps, Queens, a very deserted borough in ways for transit. You might think, oh, maybe that's just geography. No. If you look at the Bronx, as much as Bronx has some transit deserts around here, and there's a lack of crosstown rail, they could figure it out someday. But the priority should be Queens and Brooklyn, because this is a vast area without transit. As much as the transit line, you might think, oh, there's a lot, but walking between these two lines is nothing like here. It's nothing like in the Bronx. It's nothing like in Manhattan. This is very you will walk a long way between train lines. So between Forest Hills here and 7, it's 1 hour walk between these two. So there's a lot of transit deserts, especially when you go more towards east and north towards Nassau County. So this is the gap that's there they want to fill, and it's very vital, because if you want to get between, let's say, Jamaica and South Brooklyn, or even Central Queens and South Brooklyn, you need to ride a series of bus lines, and this doesn't even bring you to South Brooklyn. You have to go through Manhattan and down, or you have to transfer the G train, or make several other transfers along this way. And it's not a straightforward process. For Jamaica, if you want to go to South Brooklyn, you have to take J and Z, A and C, then transfer to F. If you want to do this from Central Queens or Flushing, it's probably better off just going to Manhattan and doing that route. And that takes 1 hour to 2 hours, depending on travel and traffic, and if things are congested in Manhattan, or even, for example, if there's transit incident, it can take 2 or 3 hours. So that's a really exhaustive ride between two boroughs that look so close yet are so far apart because of the lack of transit access between these two boroughs. So they are building, at least they're envisioning now, and they're gonna probably build it, the InterBorough Express, which was originally called the Tri-Borough RX, but now they decided to do InterBorough Express because this is actually the more priority area. No offense to Bronx, but this is really important at this moment because while the Bronx they will eventually have direct access, like for the East Bronx at least, direct access to Penn Station. Uh, this area has been lacking for a long time, Brooklyn, Queens. So they could figure that out later at a later date, but not at this moment. So the line basically connects to 17 subway lines and two on the railroad lines. So if you want to look at how it's going to run, so let's pull that up. So this is how it will run. So it connects to the R train, the D train, the N train, the F train, the Q and B, the 2 and 5, the L, the 3, the A, C, J, L, M, 7, E, F, M again, R again, and F again, obviously. So this is pretty awesome if you look at it. You fill out the transit desert is huge, especially for places like in the Millwood, Southern Flatbush area, Flatlands, Canarsie, up to Ridgewood area, Middle Village, Mass Pest. This is definitely important. So let's just look at how it's going to run. So if this is basically the corridor, Bay Ridge Avenue or 59th Street will be one of the transfers likely. If it's going to be like New York City subway, which I don't necessarily think so, it will be pure like subway. It might run more like a PAT kind of system or PATCO kind of system, somewhere hybrid between commuter rail or a subway. So it might be that, or it will lean towards commuter rail because it will interact with FRA regulated rail. So like freight lines, if they wanted the freight line to be coexistent, that's how they're gonna need to do it. Heavy rail. So one of these two R train stations will be the connection. You also can connect to 8th Avenue, Fort Hammond Parkway, one of those likely, or they're just going to run this Raleigh Express and you just transfer around 67 Utrecht to the D or N lines. Further down, you can see you got a connection to F line, NUI, and or 18th Avenue. So that's another way they can do the connection. And here's basically the N runs this way, the D runs this way. Or sometimes they switch around. Further east, you can see NUH. That's another place they're going to connect to B and Q. So this is probably going to be a midway stop. There are probably going to be some more stops around the way, but there are definitely going to be these connector stops. So Flatbush Avenue, Brooklyn College for the 2 and 5. That's definitely going to be another stop there. probably going to be another stop or a few here while it makes its way towards New Lots Avenue on the L. So they could probably put a stop around this Brooklyn Terminal Market area, merchants. That's a good way, a good place to do it. For shops, access to services and goods. Further up, it connects to the L and 3. Probably they're gonna put a stopper in here for ease of connection. And now we get to Broadway Junction, East New York. There, you can connect to J, Z, L, A, and C trains, as well as along the road at East New York. Along the road at East New York, access Atlantic Barclays Center, North Train Avenue, Jamaica, and to Lawn. So that's a very nice connection area, and it will make East New York more utilized than it is currently projected to be utilized if you don't build a line. So plenty of access, even better access to London because people don't have to run all the way up to Atlantic Barclays through several local stops. Furthermore, it goes up, parallels the L train for a good part of its journey around here. West Avenue probably will be a stop. You can probably do a Cooper Avenue stop or Murdoch Avenue and/or then up to Metropolitan Avenue where it connects to the M. That's an important connection as well. The M is developing. The L is also developing, so a lot of developing area. Probably going to help this area as well. You now enter a trans desert like we just passed through between Flatbush and the L. Now this is the biggest trans desert ever it's going to traverse because you only got bus lines. You don't have much rail line except freight. So probably they're going to have a Elliott Avenue stop, maybe a Grand or a Queens Boulevard stop, and then up to Jackson Heights, where it terminates here, and connects to the City Forest Broadway, Roosevelt Avenue, and you can also walk to West Side Station to connect to the Lawn Railroad. So you got a couple 7 stops. You have options to 65th Street as well, and Roosevelt Avenue. So along the railroad, you can access the Port Washington branch from here. You can access pretty much all the other non-rail lines, Port Jefferson, Oyster Bay, Ronkonkoma, Hempstead, West Hempstead, Long Beach, Babylon, Far Rockaway, and Montauk, etc. So yeah, plenty of options here. Now we're gonna stop the discussion for this, the transfers here, and we move on to how things could look. So this is pretty much the line we just traveled through. Again, this is the transit desert area. Although there's also a mini desert here. There's so many deserts around, maybe like around here as well. Although the G does run this way. There's still a little mini here, but it's not important to do a rail line here. While here you have a line already, right away that already exists, and it would be tragic not to utilize it more than it was intended to build to use as. So this is another transit desert, Maspeth Middle Village area. Now 17 subway lines, Long Railroad, Queens, Brooklyn. So how many, what's the time span for this corridor? Let's go there. The project will be built along the existing Bray Ridge connector, a 40-mile freight line that extends from Bray Ridge, Brooklyn to Jackson Heights, Queens. It will create a new transit option for close to 900,000 residents of the neighborhoods along this route, along with 2,600,000 people who work in Brooklyn and Queens. It will connect with up to 17 different subway lines, as well as along the railroad stations twice, with end-to-end travel times anticipated at around 40 minutes. So this definitely cuts it down significantly. Uh, you go from over an hour to possibly even closer to 2 hour ballpark to 40 minutes. That's a huge improvement. 50% cut in travel time. And it's definitely feasible. While I did not look at the feasibility report per se yet, but we can basically know it's already feasible, even without looking at it. Here's just some of the sample images, but in fact, you know what? Let's just use this, shall we? So this is the basically they do the introduction. Let me just run that up as well. So basically, this is how they're gonna bridge it. And if you want to further know how it might run into Bronx in the future, probably phase 2 or so, it will probably run like this way and up the northeast corner. So yeah. I would probably do a overtime overview of that when the video is about to end, and do a brief one. This is a dedicated right-of-way that's already been built for freight, and possibly in the past for some passenger goals as well. New York Atlantic Railway utilizes this route for a long time, but it's not that frequent now, and it could be considered semi-abandoned, although I'm not sure if there is already freight railroad use that's currently ongoing. Probably not, based on analysis of the trackage in that area. Projected passenger amount is probably around 80,000 per year, probably even more trips. Overall, 1.5 million commuters probably will use that. So yes, that's pretty impressive amount of people, and it definitely justifies for the build. Let alone the population and the amount of feedback that people are giving right now after this got announced. A lot of people will utilize it. Some of the modes that could be utilized is conventional rail, which is like commuter non-railroad, think non-railroad, think New Jersey Transit, think Metro North, SEPTA, Metrolink, so, things like that. Or diesel moldable units. Think the New Jersey Transit River Line. Probably things like up in Portland and the North Bay area. Heavy rail, which is like subway. Maybe I could also include PATH like that. PATHCO, New York City subway. Other Metro Rail, yeah. Another option is automated guideway transit. Think Vancouver SkyTrain. Think JFK AirTrain, and those sorts. light rail transit. Thing Hope Hudson Bergen light rail. The Green Line in Boston, and Charlotte Links, and perhaps the Expo line and Go line in the Los Angeles area, and or bus rapid transits. I think Max routes in Miami, select bus service in New York City, or like the 700 series in Los Angeles. So these are just some of the challenges Buckeye pipeline. There's few pipeline there, roadway crossings, right away width. So there might be some narrow areas that they need to figure out how to take care of it. Vertical clearance, and maintenance. Right, these I don't think it will be too bad, because if a freight train can utilize it, a single deck train could utilize it as well. If the individuals are concerned about they want double decker trains, that may be a problem. So that's something, but I would say it's not that bad of a concern right now, based on how things are going and how it was originally already utilized as a rail line. They just need to see how it's deteriorated and how many fixes they need to do overall. The main thing is cost. Other things I don't think is a problem. Integration with other modes. You got obviously conventional rail, which is commuter rail, on the railroad, subway lines, and other things. So it could be challenging, but it's not doable. So they could definitely figure it out. The biggest issue for this particular highlight is there a station already built around East New York? If there is no stations there, they will need to retrofit this area with a station and build from that point onward, which is going to be a engineering challenge, definitely. Environment impact, I'd say the benefit of this rail line outweighed the risk. So there's a bunch of data. The length is 40 miles. Number of private properties affected. So conventional rail 165, light rail 137, bus rapid transit 126. But it's insignificant if you think about it. So yeah, train consists or buses required. So 22 for conventional rail, 24 for light rail, 52 for bus rapid transit. Peak frequency for rail is 5 minutes. Bus rapid transit 2.5 minutes. Annual ridership estimate 25.4 million for conventional rail, 26.3 million for light rail, and 22.2 million for bus rapid transit. I would say based on this takes the cake. More people to take it, and you get better ROI or return on investment. So yeah, a percent of the line operating in dedicated right away, 100%, or to compare to 94%. I would say they should go with conventional rail 100% just to get it over with. You don't really want grades or interaction with other traffic, because it will be difficult and it will outweigh the benefits. And the more interaction with other traffic, the less the minutes will be. So although this is 45 minutes, this is like optimal time. you don't know what's the 6% gonna impact. So 39 could easily go up, 41 could easily go up, and although the start-stop time may be a little slower for conventional rail, but 45 minutes consistent is more likely going to be the case. Uh, so you want a grade separated line. You want a consistent travel time, consistent peak frequency. You want decent and sufficient ridership, and you want comfort. Conventional rail offers that. Light rail does too, but it's not going to solve much in terms of easing like equipment maintenance and like those stuff. So potential maintenance and storage are sites. So if rail, you will have these 1, 2. So 65th Street Yard will be one, and Brooklyn Army Terminal will be one. Jack Gleason Depot for bus rapture, that might be an option. This is how they will run. The idea for the conventional alternative and the majority LTBRT alternative line will run alongside the existing freight line, so it will be existing. 2 segments of the light rail and bus rapid train alternatives, and the line runs on the existing parallel streets. So there will be parallel street running here, here, or no, here. So here is the parallel running, and probably here. Here is certain LTBRD line runs and other big guideway above the freight line. So here and here. The difficulty for this is while they, in theory, it won't be too bad, but how's the street interaction? Will it impact the communities? Will it be quiet? I don't know. So the light rail and bus rapid transit option is just way too many grades here, grade interactions. And if you look at the freight line, it's not that deep. So double stack trains cannot run there, likely, and only single containers, single stack. So yeah, you won't have much clearance to run a grade separated line here and here, as well as here. So that's the difficulty. Conventional rail alternative vision service that combines aspects of traditional conventional rail and subway services. Trains will be FRA compliant, allowing passenger service to operate alongside freight tracks without physical barriers. Trains themselves will be configured similar to MT subways car and closed space doors and transverse seating. So more or less likely it's gonna be like a subway car. They're like doing conventional rail. So this perhaps can be a little more like a hybrid between a New York City subway car and on a railroad. So I'm not sure how they will do it, but this looks a lot like things in, let's say, Japan and Europe. So perhaps more like London Overground. That's something I immediately that comes into my mind, is these are kind of like how their equipment are. If you look at this equipment right here, it's kind of like this, and London Overground also has a nice network of systems, so it serves the city well, like circulatory route, which is a great part of major cities. Something in New York City is lacking: a circulatory route that helps people connect in the not in the city center, but in these more suburban residential areas and these residential business district areas. Um, let's see, interior. So probably did pull the image from the Niagara because these two look awfully a lot familiar. Uh, so yeah, in fact, this is probably like I don't know, but it's close. So these are kind of like the images. Maybe a little more comfortable seating would be optimal just to make it nice. You got this. Oh, I found the image. These two are probably the same image or close to the same image. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Um, so London Young Overground. Think London Overground for here. You got obviously two tracks here for Roosevelt Avenue station. So exit only, entrance only. This is pretty nice layout. Uh, Sort of like a Staten Island Railway and on the railroad. Uh, think that probably they will have some ticket checkers as well if that's the case. Um, as for the light rail, um, the costly of the three islands due to the need for full physical separation from freight tracks. Short segment of the line in Queens would need to operate on the existing streets. So, uh, although it's going to be high because it's modern, it's more rapid in speed up and slow downs. If you ever went to New Jersey or Charlotte, Los Angeles, a lot of these places, they have light rail vehicles, and you can feel the speed, and it's very good. Uh, these are kind of like how the light rail system will look. It's a Wilson Avenue by the L, so a nice station. Light rail looks nice as well, although it's the need to grade separate it and work with grades as well in some areas. That's going to be costly, and you have a more difficult challenge, especially if the parts are not necessarily shared. Um, the biggest issue for bus rapid transit is more grade interactions. Um, Although if they do create this as a dedicated busway, which they are likely going to do, the biggest issue is impact on local traffic, especially with the 2.5 minute headways and the lower ridership levels, the higher average runtime, including with interaction with traffic, because it will be difficult for a dedicated busway to avoid traffic interaction in many ways, especially since you need to grade separate it in multiple cases. That just doesn't make sense, and it's probably going to be a pretty expensive building all these streets above the tracks. So the I'm not shutting down these two options, but I will say, in my view, these are not the priority options that they should look at. Ridership demands 80,000, 85,000 for. I would say these. I would say conventional could also be 88,000. I don't see why there's a huge difference between these two. Uh, Maybe perhaps some more stops on the light rail versus less stop on the conventional rail, but if people want to get to places, they will get to places regardless of how, um, if they need to transfer additional or walk a little more. They'll probably do it anyways. Um, so I think conventional rail will be probably around 86,000 ballpark, maybe 2,000 difference, but it won't be this drastic. So I feel bus rapid transit probably less likely to have a full load or sufficient ridership because people probably would rather do rail in many ways. So unless if there's a different kind of BRT, I don't see it gaining much traction at this point. Uh, so Utica Avenue, East 16th Street, Roosevelt Avenue, and Flatbush Avenue will have high ridership areas. So uh, definitely a big hub as well. I was even throwing East New York over there. That's a big time improvement for commuters in terms of connection because East New York you got A, C, L, J, Z, and on the road. So that's a major transit point comparable to Roosevelt Avenue in many ways. So today you obviously need to do a lot of trips, a long trek. They're just as I described earlier, an hour plus in many cases, depending on your route. So this is definitely an improvement. You got even improvements like East New York, Central Park, Brooklyn Army Terminal, and various other places, Bushwick. And so definitely they have a lot of goodness here. And just to close off, that's another view. Probably it's already up there, but just another view. So this is InterBorough Express, um, a great rail line that's important in the development of the city of New York as well as Queens of Brooklyn. I grew up in Queens, so it definitely matters to me. I really want to get quicker to Brooklyn at some point in my life, and this definitely will offer it. And I hope they do it sooner or later. Now, let's see. Let's pull up InterBorough RX. So the InterBorough RX, we'll put this here, and it's by the Regional Planning Association as well. This is their long-term campaign. If you know trends in New York, you have definitely heard of the InterBorough RX. Hands down, it will be in your radar one way or another if you care about transit in New York. Let's see if we can pull up a map, a better map that is. Okay, let's see if this works. This may work. Same page. Okay, let's see. Or could I expand it? Let's see. Which is a larger map. Maybe that's gonna work. Okay, there we go. So this is basically the InterBorough Express runs from here to here. Now, for a InterBorough RX plan by the Regional Planning Association, this is basically Jackson Heights. Okay, 74th Street Broadway. The stop will be there for the InterBorough Express. Now, if they want to do the Tri-Borough RX plan, they need to opt for the conventional rail route, because if you go up more north, you see this line, and you also notice like they have freight here. Light rail vehicles, it's gonna terminate here, regardless. Bus rapid transit, the same thing. It's gonna terminate here regardless. The likelihood of them setting light rail vehicles and bus rapid transit to Bronx is slim to none, especially since bus lines already operate to the Bronx right now. You got Q44, Q60, no, not Q60, Q50, and they could also operate another route, maybe between Astoria and the Bronx. But besides that, there isn't much energy and support for more bus lines in terms of in the Bronx. So if you want to really have a comprehensive like plan, they need to do conventional rail. So you want to have probably another stop around here, just so Astoria gets covered. Then the train line will go up here, Hellgate Bridge, over Randall's Island. The issue with this line is Amtrak and freight already operates on this line. It's not as busy as the corridor between New York City, New York Penn Station, including Sunnyside Rail Yard, to be frank, because that's where Amtrak and New Jersey Transit park their trains. All the way down to, like, let's say Philadelphia 30 is, and Washington Union Station. But it's pretty busy still, regardless. Down the road, you also have another line when east side access for the London Railroad goes to the Grand Central Terminal. Probably later this year, or maybe if they face supply chain issues, maybe some point in 2023. But depending on the circumstance, if they do the Bronx stations quick, they could obviously offer service ASAP. In fact, I believe Metro North could offer it as soon as the London Railroad switches, although it might run express between New Rochelle and New York Penn Station in the interim. For this line, you need FRA standards. You need a train that can operate at least 80 miles an hour. So conventional rail is probably the best bet for the Bronx extension in the future. You'll obviously have a couple stops. Let's just see Tri-Borough RX. You got Hunts Point. You got Parkchester. I believe Morris Park is another one of them, and Co-op City. So you got a couple options, 4 stops in the Bronx. If they want to do this extension, then definitely do conventional rail. Operate all the way to Co-op City here, and in fact, I would say this also would alleviate some Metro North ridership, because people would have alternatives. If they want to get to Queens anyway, they would take this line and Brooklyn, so they wouldn't have to transfer a Manhattan in any shape, way, or form. So conventional rail offers the most flexibility and the most consistent and the best future vision, if you will. So this is basically how the Triborough RX extension would look like if that were to take place. But currently the focus is Queens and Brooklyn, and for right reasons, because if you look at the Bronx, yeah, there's a small gap, notable gap here, but it's not too drastically bad. It's just like Metro North's Harlem line covers it as well, New Haven line in ways. And there's some transit deserts up here as well, but it's not as bad as Queens and Brooklyn area. But this definitely will be a important step to improving and solidifying things, especially if you can look at it. The line is already on the satellite. Even at this zoom, you can see pretty much how the line will go. So that's the InterBorough Express and Triborough RX, as well as Cross Bay Tunnel, Cross Harbor Tunnel. And this will definitely be a major step to improving commuter options and freight options in the region, and bring New York to a more like a world-class, nation-wide class city. And then it is already a world-class city anyways, but this will just bring it one step further to that major world-class status, and improving upon the infrastructure that was abandoned over the years. That's it, and hope you enjoyed the video. I'm Northeast Regional Bristol, signing off, and hoping to see you in the next one. Take care.